What's up, music fans of the internet? I am Kevin.
I'm Derek.
And together we are last week's album, The Only Reviews with two different views. And in this episode, we're talking about the new album by Elvi called Return to the Moon and exploring the big question, is this superduo's debut an out-of-this-world collaboration? But before we get into that, we'll start like we always do with a beer. Cheers, Derek, and everyone at home.
Cheers, Kevin, everyone at home.
Elvi, they say, is pronounced like the plural form of Elvis. And it is Matt Berninger of The National and Brent Knopf, formerly of Menomena and now of Ramona Falls. So they're both established musicians in their own rights with their sort of main bands. They keep referring to this as a collaboration, specifically not a side project. They're drawing that distinction for whatever reason. So maybe there's more to come in the future. But anyway, Return to the Moon is more autobiographical, Matt Berninger says, than anything he's done before. And he's also talked about it as sort of a rock opera involving characters modeled after members of the band The Minutemen. And that's it in a nutshell. Let's talk about what it sounds like. Derek, what do you think?
Kevin, I think Elvi sounds like The National gets a Broken Bells makeover.
Nice, nice. I think it sounds like Father John Misty, LCD Soundsystem, Velvet Underground, and the Strokes on a lunar ride to the 80s.
Nice.
And with that, let's talk about some key tracks. Derek, what are you going with?
I'm pulling the first track, which also happens to have the longest track title, Return to the Moon. I'll follow that up when I go into detail later. And I also have It's a Game.
All right. I'm going to go with track number 2, I'm the Man to Be, and number 3, Paul is Alive. So why don't you start us off with Return to the Moon, Derek?
Return to the Moon, or should I refer to it by its full title, Return to the Moon, political song for Dee Dee Bloom to sing with crescendo. I'm serious. This one features chirping guitars, spacey keys, thumping bass guitar, a sauntering drum beat, and I thought this really kind of created an 80s new wave or post-punk type sound. The chorus, which I thought was really interesting, featured a lot of movement instrumentally, juxtaposed against a very catchy legato vocal melody. So it really created a very interesting contrast, I thought. Very catchy. Strings join the chorus before the bridge, which adds a very nice wrinkle as well. Overall, I just thought it was a very upbeat, poppy number, just really a strong one to lead off the album and captured my attention immediately.
Yeah, I liked it for the same reasons. It was definitely a great start. And then they didn't slow down. If we start talking about track number 2, I'm the Man to Be, it's got dark, grungy guitar, new age bass, rackety drums, shimmering synths, some yelled background vocals later on in the track. Matt Berninger said it's from the perspective of a pathetic, self-aggrandizing rocker alone in a hotel room. So he's being a little bit self-referential and making fun of himself, I think. And there's a really good line. He says, can't reach a cotton ball to dry the little teardrop underneath my right eye. I can use my Louis Vuitton tie. And then there's some sort of canned laughter that plays under, which is really nice. And ultimately, it ended up sounding like the Strokes meet Sleigh Bells. And I think it's a fun track as well. The sarcasm, the satire, let you know these guys are not taking themselves too seriously and having fun with this record. And then to go the opposite direction, followed up track number 3, Paul is Alive, is a little bit more serious in tone. It's got a program beat, wobbly synths, some emo lyrics about a teenager obsessed with music. It sounds like a young Matt Berninger reflecting on his teen years. He says, I was 16 years old in a dead guy's boots with my hair slicked to the side, sitting outside the jockey club, crying in my 7-Up. And it's actually an uplifting song, despite what might sound like some downer lyrics. It is about how music can lift you up. There's some gospel backing vocals that come in later in the track and really play that idea up. And ends up somewhere in the realm of the Shins meet Future Island. Just a really nice track overall. What about It's a Game, Derek?
Kevin, before I talk about It's a Game, I think it should be pointed out that you failed to mention he's crying in his 7-Up, waiting outside a club while, Husker Du's playing.
Yeah, good point. He mentioned some other 80s bands it sounds like he was into growing up, for sure.
Yeah, I just thought that was really interesting, the name drops that happen there. But moving on, It's a Game, 7th track on the album. I thought this was one of the more The National sounding songs on the album. The plucked acoustic guitar riff at the beginning, it really plays a prominent role throughout. lumbering bass guitar, easy paced bass snare drum beat, electric guitar flourishes, and a whirring synth hook towards the end. Kind of slower pace, which I thought was much more in tune with the National. You can tell, obviously, some overlap there. The lyrics, I thought, described the ups and downs incurred through the courting process. An example line, "There's nothing I could do, gone before I knew. It's a game. I can't wait to see you." So just really kind of a poignant number here later on in the album. And I thought it was cool to, these sounds were very new and different from these different bands that they're coming from in this collaboration. But this one song I thought was cool to harken back to some of the National sounds.
Yeah, for sure. All right, and let's talk about best lyrics now. Derek, what are you going with?
There was a lot of good ones to choose from, but I'm pulling one from No Time to Crank the Sun. And he says, "I was driving, taking chances, walking way too far out on some broken branches. Sometimes where you're going is hard to see." First off, I really liked the wordplay, the rhyming between chances and branches. That's just solid right there. But then the last line I liked even more so. Very insightful. Sometimes where you're going is hard to see, especially when you're blindfolded. I just added in that last part.
Nice. I'm going to go with a name of a song, actually, for my best lyric. The name of the track is Happiness, Missouri. And it's a clever play on words, which I'm sure you can pick up on your own. But also, those two words just by themselves capture the sort of essence of this album. They do it really succinctly. It's a really, it's two words, and you just put them together. And it's to speak back to what Derek was saying earlier about contrast. It sort of encapsulates that really, really nicely. And that's a big part of this album. And now let's talk about overall rating. And the big question is this superduo's debut, an out-of-this-world collaboration. Derek, what do you think?
Kevin, as far as answering the big question, is this an out-of-the-world collaboration? As far as I know, it has not been beamed out to, other races of beings that might not be from this planet. So I'm going to say it's terrestrial for the time being, but I don't want to cap its, potential. And I think it could be very out of this world. In fact, I think it's solid enough to be like top of the world. So look out, Everest. Pros, I thought really intricate instrumentation created a lot of interesting sound textures. Just as you and I have talked about, from opening track, the playful, bouncy pop of Return to Me to the industrial, rock of I'm the Man to Be, just kind of slightly tweaking a few small things to create a very different sound, I thought. Very lyrically strong. I think we've definitely kind of touched on your line about drawing the eye with a Louis Vuitton tie totally stood out to me. I thought the canned laughter was a very nice effect. On the con side, maybe, I thought maybe they bounced around between emotions too much at times. It was almost hard for me to kind of follow the, if there was a storyline or just follow the full arc, if you will. But that being said, I think they did a lot of really good things here. I think this definitely was not a National album. So anyone that going out there, looking for that, you're going to be dismayed to some degree. But I thought it was really strong. Really dug this album, giving it a 4 out of 5.
Nice. All right. We're going to agree for the most part, I think. I think it's great juxtaposition, dark vocals, and the pop music backing works really, really well. When they do get into like later in the album, the music gets slower and darker, and the lyrics stay slow and dark, and then it's just not that interesting. But when they have that juxtaposition and that contrast between the vocals and the music, it works really, really well. And I think it keeps it more light and fun than, say, a National album, but still with plenty of substance. I mean, really lyrically strong, as Derek mentioned. What else? To answer the big question, is this an out-of-this-world collaboration? I think it's definitely as good, if not better, than their respective bands. I think it's a really refreshing change of pace when artists branch out and flex their creative muscles. And I think they've created a strong sound that is different enough than the bands they might be known for. So with that, I'm going to give it a 4 out of 5 as well. Great debut album. That makes it an 8 out of 10 combined from Derek and myself. So definitely check out Return to the Moon by Elvi and let us know what you guys think. And thanks for watching here at last week's album. Don't forget to subscribe to us either here on YouTube or on the podcast. We are the only reviews with 2 different views. As always, I'm Kevin.
I'm Derek.
Cheers, guys. See you next time.